Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. Rain or shine, win or loss, if there's a Purdue basketball game, I'll be here with a boiler ball recap. This one was a tough one, as Purdue traveled to Columbus, Ohio to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes in their first game since the firing of their head coach, Chris Holtmann. I knew Ohio State would be fired up, but I certainly didn't expect this. But without further ado, let's run it. So this one ends up with a final score of Ohio State 73, Purdue 69. So Ohio State had really been on a downturn since the start of 2024. And I said in the last recap that Ohio State would be looking to prove that they're more than their 2-9 record that they had in their last 11 games coming into this one. And boy, did they. They found ways to disrupt Purdue and make them uncomfortable, holding this Boilermaker offense to under 70 points for just the third time this year. Going into some of the key players and top performers of this game, headlined once again, as per usual, by Zach Edey, ended up with 22 points on 7-11 shooting. 8 for 8 from the free throw line, so much improved from the free throw line there. 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, but 6 turnovers. And that ends up being very key in this one. We'll talk about that later. Again, we've got Braden Smith as well. Wasn't as high of a scorer this game, only 12 points on 5 of 11 from the floor. 0 for 2 from 3, but 2 for 2 from the free throw line. 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 block, but he had 3 turnovers as well. For Ohio State, on the other hand, Bruce Thornton really led the way for a lot of the game with 22 points on 8 of 17 shooting, 1 for 4 from 3, 5 for 5 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. And behind him was Jamison Battle, former Minnesota player, transferred to Ohio State, ended up with 19 points on 6 of 8 shooting, 3 for 5 from 3, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, and 4 rebounds. Some honorable mentions from each of those teams for Purdue. A guy we haven't really talked about very much is Trey Kaufman-Renn. They looked to establish him early and often. He ended up with 12 points on 5 of 6 shooting and 2 of 2 from the free throw line, with 3 rebounds and 2 assists to go along with. And for Ohio State, you've got Zed Key off the bench with 9 points on 4 of 7 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, 1 rebound, 1 assist, and 5 steals. From a backup big man, that's almost unheard of. So looking into this one, this game really can't be labeled as anything other than a shock. But let me give you my perspective as a lifelong Purdue fan on this game. Does losing this game suck? Absolutely. Did I want Purdue to lose any more games for the rest of the season? Obviously not. But going into March with the Big Ten tournament and then the NCAA tournament back-to-back on a massive winning streak can sometimes do more harm than good. You end up with this massive target on your back, more so than usual, because obviously Purdue has had, a target on their back all year long. But people are just waiting on the game where things fall apart. And when it's one and done, you don't get another chance. Purdue found that out the hard way last year. I'd rather them get a regrouping game now, have the wheels fall off during a regular season road game, and take another deep dive into what this team needs to focus on fixing heading into March than if they played pretty solid basketball, scraping by some close wins, kind of like that Minnesota game in their last matchup, on the way to March and having the wheels fall off at the worst time possible again. I think that with 5 regular season games left before the Big Ten tournament, Purdue can take this loss and turn it into a reshaping moment and get back to playing their best basketball when it matters most. But that being said, let's talk about what happened. So Purdue jumped out to an early 8-0 lead, getting multiple guys involved early, including TKR, but they let Ohio State back in it as they went cold on offense in the middle of the first half. It was neck and neck until a couple of costly Purdue turnovers in the last 4 minutes of the first half gave Ohio State enough momentum to head into halftime with a 5-point lead. But 5 points can swing like that in a game like this, so it wasn't a code red situation yet by any means. They were down by more at halftime to Minnesota. But things didn't really start to get out of hand until a couple minutes into the second half. Enter Jamison Battle. Battle went the entire first half without a single shot attempt. This is a guy who averages nearly 14 points per game for the Buckeyes, by the way. But he can get hot quick, and boy, did he. 3 straight trips for the Buckeyes, starting at the 15-minute mark, 3 straight Jamison Battle threes, and all of a sudden it's 50-38, and the Boilers find themselves down 12 and absolutely reeling. But Purdue wouldn't back down. They finally found some offense, getting some much-needed stops, and they cut the lead down to 5 within 3 minutes. So all of a sudden, they're right back in it. But both teams traded buckets down the stretch until Purdue was finally able to overcome the deficit entirely and tie the game with a minute and a half to go. But the Buckeyes would not crumble and would not back down under the pressure. Zed Key comes away with another steal. Battle knocks down 2 free throws, and that was enough to keep Purdue at arm's length and hold on to this one. So what did we learn? some general statistic here to look at. Big thing is turnovers. Purdue ends up with 14, Ohio State with 6. That alone is going to be tough on any given day, regardless of how else the rest of the game went. From 3, Purdue shot 3 for 9. They shot a lot less than we're used to seeing, but 33%, not crazy, except for the fact that all 3 of those threes came from Lance Jones. Nobody else was able to hit anything. For Ohio State, they did end up making a couple more, but they shot a lot more. They were 7 for 21, so they shot 33% as well. Dead even on that one. They just happened to make a couple more and shoot quite a bit more. And from the free throw line, I don't know, maybe it was something I said. I would love to take credit for it, but obviously I highly doubt it. Purdue figured out their free throw shooting in this one, going perfect from the line, 20 for 20, while Ohio State went 10 for 11. So both teams shot really well from the free throw line here. But outside of statistics, I'll just plain out and say it. Ohio State looked like they wanted it more. They were aggressive on defense, bothering Purdue all over the court, and found ways to cause turnovers and in turn get quite a few points off of turnovers. They crashed the offensive glass and exposed Purdue for not boxing out very much throughout a lot of the first half and just plain out-battled Purdue. But going into some key team points, for Purdue, take care of the basketball. We mentioned it here a little bit ago with the turnovers, and they were incredibly costly this game. Turnover margin and points off turnovers can make or break so many games. And if Purdue wants to make an NCAA tournament run, they have to be less careless with the ball. That also means learning how to handle intense on-ball pressure, which they've really struggled with throughout most of the year. Having 8 more turnovers than the other team, and I don't know the exact points off turnovers there, but Ohio State definitely got quite a few. That ended up really being the difference maker in this one. The other thing for Purdue, Fletcher Loyer. It's unusual for me to talk about a specific player when talking about key points for a team, but he is absolutely something that needs to be talked about for Purdue right now. If you followed Purdue basketball throughout the year last year, when they really burst onto the scene as a top team in the country, Loyer and Smith far exceeded expectations as freshmen, and people talked about it all the time. But one of the things to note about Purdue's downfall at the end of the year is Loyer was battling through a calf injury and seemed to lose steam, which really put a damper on his scoring abilities. Well, it was right around this time of the year when you saw him wear down and start to lose that steam. And these last 3 games, we've seen Loyer really start to struggle. 1 for 6 with 5 points again against IU, 1 for 5 with 3 points against Minnesota, and now 1 for 7 with 6 points against Ohio State. Can they get him back on track and playing like himself come tournament time? Or are we going to see some of the same Loyer that we did towards the end of last season? He's obviously a great part of this team, a super talented player and scorer, but as of right now, we haven't seen much out of him in this time of the year, really when it matters most. They need his shooting and they need his versatility and confidence if they're going to truly be an elite dynamic team going into the NCAA tournament. I'm curious to see how the rest of the regular season plays out, but I have to say I'm a bit nervous about how he's been playing lately. But for Ohio State, really was just the perfect storm. I'm not sure if it was the firing of Chris Holtmann, if it could have come at a better time, but even if I don't really think it was Holtmann's fault that the Buckeyes looked as bad as they did throughout that stretch in the middle of the season, but going into this game with a new interim coach, biggest game of the season, everything fell into place for them to come out guns blazing with nothing to lose, and they played like it. If they could channel that kind of motivation and fire into every game, this team could look a lot more like the team that we saw start the season 12-2. And secondly, defensive intensity. If you look at this game as a whole, Ohio State's offense really didn't win them this game. They scored 73 points and had quite a few easy buckets in transition off of turnovers. But it was their defense that really powered them to this win, forcing tough shots, causing turnovers, and just playing with such intensity on the defensive side of the ball. Gave Purdue fits when this Boilermaker offense has found ways around almost all of the defenses they faced throughout the year. So hats off to the Buckeyes. They deserve this one. But this game was another great example of why you play every game. You never know what can happen under the bright lights. For Purdue, their regrouping game will be a chance to take some frustration out on a team they've struggled with plenty in recent memory as Rutgers comes to West Lafayette next Thursday. And for Ohio State, the new era continues as they look to capitalize on this momentum as they travel to Minnesota next Thursday as well. They're going to need a lot of wins and or a Big Ten tournament championship if they want a spot in the dance come March. So they've got a lot of work to do. But that's all I've got for today. We're down to the final 5 regular season games before the Big Ten tournament starts in the middle of March. Keep an eye out for more Boom Buster Believable as I try to get through as many Big Ten teams as I can before the big dance. And I know Drew's got some more Butler content coming for you as they play the rest of their regular season games out as well. But until then, like and subscribe for more college basketball content. And until next time, I'm out.